Hills National Forest has rules that you should follow to stay safe, much like the Appalachian Mountains do. So our followers live there for a while, they're fully aware of the rules and follow them, but they wanted to share with me something that's been happening outside of their house at night. Buckle in, because it's terrifying. So their backyard contains a ravine, and that water is usually very dried up at the bottom, but in the springtime it runs pretty hard because the snow's melting. Hello, Pete. They are pretty certain that there is some sort of entity hanging around that ravine because they hear her wailing and crying. And I know what you're thinking, maybe it's the wind. It's not. It happens no matter what the weather is, no matter what the time of year is. This sound happens at night. One night our follower wakes up to hear a baby crying outside, and they know they're supposed to ignore it, but just something, and they can't ignore it. So they wake up their boyfriend and they're like, "Do you hear that?" So of course the boyfriend does hear it, and he gets up and starts to walk over to the window, and then something horrifying happens. So as he's walking over to the window to see if someone is standing outside with a baby because it is so loud and clear, the lights start to flicker on and off. The energy gets even weirder, and the boyfriend's like, "There's nothing out there. There is nothing out there." And they just decide to go back to bed, even though they are hearing this screaming baby. I honestly don't know how they went back to sleep. And that is where the story ends. This is now happening a few times a week. So I did email them and I was like, "Have you gotten it on camera? Because I just want to hear the sounds that they're hearing." And hopefully they do. And if they do send me it, I will do a follow-up and let you guys hear it as well. National parks, national forests, those are just horrifying to me. Those are like top tier terrifying places to me. I had a follower reach out to me recently for some advice. Ew. My ring light started like flashing. Okay, a fun start. I had a follower reach out to me for some advice. What the heck? Hold on one second. Everything, I just filmed a video and that wasn't happening. Okay. Anyways, we'll just try to deal with it. Let me try turning down the brightness. Maybe it's like, God, it wasn't even all the way up. So before we get into this, I gave myself a little chuckle, and I thought maybe you guys would like some comedic relief, because the story's kind of heavy. But when they sent this story to me, they titled it, "My Children Keep Seeing the White Guy," or it's something along those lines. And this is all I could think of.
A white man broke in today.
A white man? No! What does security do about it?
Nothing.
Typical!
This story is taking place in a Chicago apartment where their kids' fathers, and their 3 children have lived for 3 years. So this apartment has some stuff going on, and it has since they moved in. There has not been one person that has not had a weird, unexplainable experience in this apartment. But the most troubling one is something that their kids and even their kids' father have seen, that the kids have given the title "the white guy." Now at the beginning, they really didn't think much of it. They were like, "Oh, this started around the age of 2.5 for my kids. They're just scared of the dark and it's just like some fear manifestations." But that all came to a screeching halt when their kid's father saw this thing as well. He describes this thing as a very small, childlike humanoid figure that was completely white. There was no facial features. It was just all white. Like, think Slender Man's face. Or at least that's what I thought. A child Slender Man is actually horrifying. I don't like that. I don't like that. The white guy's presence is affecting everyone in the house, especially the children. The 2 children that are older will not sleep in that bedroom at all anymore. They have all had experiences, no matter how many lights parents add to the room to make it brighter, to make it more comfortable. No one will sleep in there except for the 1-year-old, and they don't know if that's because they just haven't seen the white guy or if they are just too young to tell them that they're seeing the white guy. But they are the only ones that are in the room sleeping. But no matter how many lights they add to this room, without fail, between 2:45 and 3:45 a.m., both of those kids are in bed with their parents. They will not stay in that room. It always comes at that time. And our followers said they are the only ones at this point in the house, except for maybe the 1-year-old, who have not seen the white guy, but they did see something and they think maybe it was the white guy. So they got up one night to get a glass of water, and they said they looked out of their window, which is facing their neighbor's apartment, and they saw kind of what their kid's father had described, just in a separate apartment. And they said if that is what their kids are seeing, then Lord help them, because it was horrifying. I do have another story that they shared with me that is a mimic story, but that is the end of the white guy story. Like I said, if you guys have any advice on what they can do, I suggested cleansings and things like that, but any advice you guys have, please leave below. And So one weekend, our follower goes out of town and the kids are left with their father. And one day, their son just runs up to their father and they're like, oh my gosh, mom's home. I just talked to her in the bedroom. I'm so excited. And their father's blood ran freaking cold. He knew there was just a bad gut feeling. He was like, I'm not going to go in that bedroom. I mean, I'm going to text and see if they just happen to be home. Maybe they are, but they weren't. So he tells our follower what happened, and our follower's like, it's probably nothing. Just tell him it was a dream. Tell him to ignore it if it happens again. And that is where they left that. Telling their son to ignore it was a very good call, in my opinion, because mimics are no joke, and they feed off of attention. Mimics really are the worst. Like, they're so scary. They're literally terrifying. I feel for anyone who's ever had a mimic experience, honestly. So this story starts off pretty innocently with our follower and their girlfriend deciding to go on a walk at like 7 p.m. earlier this month. They're on their way home, it's already dark, and they're like, hey, let's cut through this park near our house and walk this trail, and that's exactly what they do. They're nearing the end of this trail, and they hear a growl behind them. So without missing a beat, their girlfriend turns around and is like, oh, what was that? She said she came face to face with a humanoid-type figure with an antler on each head. So they decide to just keep walking forward and to keep their head down, and as they are looking down at the ground and walking, they see the shadow of something massive fly over their heads. They said they got home safely and not much has happened since then, but they do wonder what it is they saw. And I have theories, and I'm sure you guys do as well. So the humanoid figure and the antlers is giving classic thing that lurks in the woods of Appalachia Wendy Boy vibes. But the fact that they saw something fly away, it's kind of giving fae. I don't know. It could also just have been like an entity presenting itself that way. Don't really know why it would have, but it could have been. That's just strange. I bet that was super alarming to just see at night in the park. I don't like it. What do you guys think? So our follower decides to decorate their room for Halloween recently, and a lot of these decorations are old wine bottles. They placed them all around their room, but a lot of them were on top of their mini fridge. So one day they're just minding their business and they get up off their bed to go to the bathroom, and a wine bottle lifts up off the mini fridge and launches across the room. Somehow it doesn't break, but I mean, it was launched. So our follower decides that they are going to ignore it and just walk onto the bathroom. So they get up, leave the room, go in the bathroom, and shut the door. While they're in the bathroom, they hear an awful commotion going on from their bedroom, and it ends with something like the sounds of something running down the hallway. They even said these footsteps sounded wet, which I can't, I've sat here and I'm just like, that makes no sense. Why did they sound wet? Like, it's bothered me so badly. So they eventually go back in their room to find every single decoration now on the floor, and their mini fridge has turned to face the wall. And after this occurrence, things started getting even worse. They are now hearing their name being called from outside their window, which is literally impossible because they're on the 3rd floor and it should not sound as close as it is. They have a mirror that their cat will stare into and hiss, and also the wine bottles are flying again and it almost hit them directly in the head. They said they aren't sure what to do at this point, but it's literally exhausting, and I cannot even imagine dealing with all of that at once. So I think, first of all, before you do anything, you need to lock that mirror, and I can do a video on that if you guys like. I've had a few people ask. If that's something you're interested in, just let me know. But I did email them and tell them how to do it. So do that first, because I think that whatever is in the house got in that way. So I would do that first, and then open a window and cleanse your entire space. That is so scary. Just stuff flying at your head is so scary. Do y'all want to read another follower story with me? This one is creepy. When I was around 10, my family and I moved into our rental house, and we lived there for over 11 years. Our hallway would creak in specific spots when someone walked on them, but I could hear creaks in the hallway late at night. I knew everyone was asleep when it was happening. One night at around 12 o'clock, I walked out of the hallway, and I quite literally froze in fear when I looked up from my phone to see a pure black adult-like figure walk across the living room to the kitchen. I was planning to just continue walking, thinking it was nothing, when the figure suddenly arched its back to look at me and just stayed like that, staring at me for a minute. Then it unarched its back and walked off again like nothing happened. I just went back to my room because I was not about to try and get a snack after that. And that was the end of it all until a few years later when we moved to the house next door. My mom's friend started renting this house. One day, the mother next door was over and was explaining something super odd that she just saw. She was looking over the video footage from the cameras outside, and she noticed one of the pictures was of her husband. But it wasn't just her husband. A dark black figure was walking behind him. So I'm thinking it's an apparition that haunts the house because of something that happened there or something else. That is the end of that story, and I definitely agree with what they think. I think it's like residual energy or just a spirit haunting their house. I have such a creepy follower story to share with you guys. So they started off by telling me a bit about their gift to see spirits, and everyone sees them a little bit differently. And this person sees outlines in their mind, kind of like auras. They described it as an old faded image that they will see in their head, and they can't really make out many details. Which, fun fact, is how my husband sees spirits as well. They come as like little visions. So the story they told me takes place in a cemetery where one of their father's relatives was buried. So they and their family went with their father so that their father could leave flowers on that grave, and after they finished with that, they decided to walk around a bit. It was starting to get dark, and they decided to get out their phone and snap some pictures. So the group kind of split up. One went one way, and our followers group went another way around a tree to a bench. So our follower was sitting there just messing around with the camera on their phone, and they got curious and zoomed into a certain tree, and they think they caught something. At the same time that this is happening and our followers looking at their phone, their mom's like, "Something just touched me," and they all turn around and no one's behind them. So as they're looking around trying to figure out what's happening, they hear a humming coming from a bush nearby, and they start calling for the other group because is this a person messing with them? They all walked over to the bush, and there was nothing there. There was no eerie energy either this entire time. You would think you would feel something. Everyone that's experiencing this believes in paranormal things, and they were like, "Oh, it's a nearby spirit just messing with us, it's fine." But then our follower turned and was met with a very dark, cloudy figure and a message in their head telling them to leave. So they told everyone else in the group, and everyone was like, "Okay, let's get out of here." That's so good that they believed them. So as they're all walking away, our followers looking around, and they're just seeing these figures everywhere. They were everywhere that wasn't on this path that they were taking, and all of them were giving the same message: leave. They got back to the car and left, but everyone just had this lasting feeling of discomfort. But it was completely gone by the time they got home. That is wild. I guess one of the spirits really did not want you guys there. I don't know. I haven't looked at the pictures yet, so I'm going to insert those now. They did say that the person in the red shirt is a person. That's not what we're looking at. But let's see what this is. So here's the one with the person in the red shirt. Yeah, there's something back there with that tree. I see the shadows that they were talking about, like the dark figures. That's definitely what that is. Oh my, I cannot believe you caught that on camera. That's crazy. I'm always so amazed when like things get caught on camera that you're experiencing, because it makes you just feel a little bit less alone. But also that's scary. Let's look at the other two pictures. That's so pretty. That's such a pretty sunset. Yeah, I don't feel any bad energy in this at all. The other one, I definitely felt something. I don't know if it was bad, but I felt something. This one's just like empty. And here is that final picture. I definitely see what they mean by just the energy feeling empty and not really threatening, because I don't really feel anything. I feel like the only reason that I felt something in the other one is because I saw something. I definitely get what they mean. But I will never get over this image of that tree, because when I was reading the story, I saw something in my mind, and that is exactly what I saw. And I didn't see those pictures before I read this, so whoa. Today I have a very long follower story for you guys, so get comfy, get a snack, get a drink, and let's sit and listen to these stories. Well, you guys listen. I'm going to be telling them. So the first experience happened to our follower when they were around 5 years old, maybe younger, and they were taking a bath in their house. They knew they should not fall asleep in the bathtub, but that warm water was just hugging them right to sleep, and they ended up dozing off. They woke up to what they thought was their mother tickling their stomach, like to wake them up gently, and the water was now cold, so who knows how long they were asleep. Our follower opens their eyes and sees a woman standing there with a long brown dress, kind of Victorian era style, that went up to her neck, and her hair was in a tight bun. They close their eyes again, open them right back up, jump up and grab a towel and get out of the bathroom, only to find their mom in the living room watching TV. Not wearing that, obviously. The next story occurred in a brand new house while they and their sister were sitting on the living room couch watching the show A Haunting. I feel like we all have a weird story connected to that show. As they were watching this, their bathroom door slammed shut, which they had left open just a little bit, and there was no AC on to make this happen. The third story occurred at their stepsister's house, which was massive. A lot of things occurred to a lot of people in this house, but our follower only experienced this thing. Their stepsister's dad had work and he was already asleep, so they, their stepsister, and their stepsister's friend ended up sneaking into the kitchen to get a snack in the middle of the night, and they were trying their best to be so quiet. So as they are sneaking through this pitch black house, suddenly the two others grab our follower and just start yanking them and telling them to go. And once they get back into that room, they tell our follower that something was behind them. They didn't know what it was, but it was right behind them. And they made sure it wasn't the dad the next day by asking if he had come into the kitchen, and he responded with, "I didn't even know you guys were in the kitchen." The next story is a sleep paralysis story. So during the summer, our follower would go back and forth between their grandparents' house, and at one of the grandparents' houses, there was a hospice bed in the bedroom because that's where their great-grandmother had recently passed. So they're playing on their Kindle, and they eventually fall asleep, but they immediately wake right back up and try to move their hand over to get their Kindle, and they can't move. They had this urge to look over at the door and saw their grandmother's cat, who was very mean and had recently passed away, sitting in the doorway. Then something walked into the doorway. They couldn't move or speak, and they didn't know who it was, but they knew that it was not their great-grandmother. The next story occurred at the beach, where their dad's side of the family went to celebrate a cousin's birthday. Our followers just minding their own business, doing cartwheels because they're really into gymnastics, when they lose track of how many they've done and start to get dizzy. They hear clapping and cheering, and they look up to see their dad's dad, who they had never met before. Their dad's dad had passed away in a motorcycle accident whenever our follower was very young, and the only reason that they knew what he looked like was because a picture hung in the house. The next story occurred when their parents separated and they and their mom moved in with their grandparents. So they got everything moved in, but our follower could not fall asleep because of that last sleep paralysis incident in the house. They were just terrified. The hospice bed is now out of the house, and they are laying in the floor on an air mattress, and as our followers trying to fall asleep, they look up at the ceiling. They're met with a black shadow figure with bright red eyes crawling across the ceiling. They made eye contact, and this thing crawled over to the closet and just snuck through the door, and this is the room that our follower lived in for the remainder of the time in that house. This next story occurred back in the stepsister's house, but the stepsister was not there. They were with their boyfriend for the night. So the stepsister had an evil eye chain hanging off of her bedside lamp, and our follower had gotten up in the middle of the night, bumped the table, and that lamp, the little chain on it, fell off. They, of course, get up, pick up the evil eye chain, and put it back, and the evil eye chain was no longer facing them, but they didn't think anything of it. So they sit back down, and the lamp starts flickering non-stop until they think maybe to turn the evil eye back around, and as soon as they did, it stopped. This next one occurred in that same house, but the stepsister was back home this night. So the sister's laying in bed, and our followers laying on the floor in an air mattress when they start hearing their stepsister talk, and that's not abnormal. She talks in her sleep. But then something abnormal happens. The stepsister sits straight up in the bed and starts whispering to our follower. And what does she say? "Where is your mother?" Our follower was like, "What do you mean?" And she just kept repeating it over and over, just whispering it. Our follower finally kind of snapped and said, "Dude, she's back home, and you know that." And the stepsister snapped her head around and just laid back down like nothing happened. And the next morning, she had no memory of it. This next story occurred in the new house that their mom and stepdad had moved into, and the house was kind of U-shaped. Our follower's room and the spare bedroom were on the left side of the house facing each other. The bathroom was to the left and the living room was to the right. The kitchen was technically on the same wall, obviously on the other side of it, as the closet in their bedroom. So one night they're just laying in bed scrolling on their phone about to go to sleep when they start hearing tapping coming from the wall inside their closet. So they were like, "Oh, I bet they're just in the kitchen cutting something because, the walls." And the next morning they get up and they ask their stepsister what the heck they were doing in the middle of the night. And their stepsister was like, "No one was awake last night." And they all brushed it off until one morning the stepsister's door was shut on her bedroom, so everyone knew she was asleep. And our follower was in the bathroom when our follower heard tapping on that door. So our follower calls out to their stepsister and nothing is said but the tapping stops. Stepsister says she was asleep and she didn't hear anything, and they brush it off again. One night the stepsister was in their room and they start to hear the tapping coming from the wall where their dresser is, and they're both hearing it now at the same time. They go over to the dresser, pull out a drawer, and you can hear it coming from inside of the dresser drawer. It's not even on the wall. The final story occurred when the stepsister moved out of the house and the mom and dad were away for the weekend. So they're sitting in the living room alone when they hear the deadbolt snap, and they know what that sound is. It's very distinct. They didn't realize that an hour had already passed since their parents had left, and they just assumed that they had turned around because they forgot something, and they called out to ask for their mom. So they get up and check it out and find nothing there, and they just brush it off. So So it's time for them to go to bed that night. They bring the dogs in their bedroom and shut the door so that they feel more secure. So the dogs are sleeping on the bed when one of them jolts up, turns to the closet door, and starts growling. Pretty soon, all of the dogs are either barking or growling at this closet door. And they eventually stopped, and our follower fell asleep. Somehow they fell asleep. I would have left the house. But that is all of their stories. Good luck sleeping tonight, because I will not be. If you visit the Appalachian Mountains on vacation or to see a family member and encounter something terrifying in the woods, can it follow you back home? That is a question that arrived in my DMs along with a horrifying story at 1 in the morning, so I am going to share that story with you guys. Because if I got scared, I'm not going to do it alone. So our follower visited the Shenandoah Mountain of West Virginia to see their father. Their dad just got a wild hair in him and decided that he wanted to explore the woods in the middle of the night. And our follower was like, well, I can't let you go by yourself. So they all packed up and went to the woods. Things were fine. They were walking around for about an hour at this point when things went silent. By things, I mean nature. Like the one thing that should never go silent, silent. So they flip on a light and say, hey dad, I'm just getting a hunch that we should return home. So thankfully they do get home safely and nothing else happens on that trip as far as I know. But when they returned back to their house, stuff started happening. So it would start off with them hearing their cat meowing and running around with the little bell on their collar in the middle of the night upstairs. But their room's in the basement and their cat would be right beside them. And on top of that, right before this would happen and right after, there would be a ringing in their ears that was so painful it would almost cause them to pass out. There have also been 2 handprints kind of sliding up on their kitchen window as if something is trying to open the window and get inside. There was also a pack of coyotes that have lived around their house for 11 years and they've suddenly relocated. After 11 years, they just moved for no reason. And also at night, our follower will hear glass shattering in the room beside of them. We'll go check it and nothing will be broken. I've actually heard of that happening a lot and I've experienced that as well. It's unnerving every time. So to answer that initial question of can things follow you? Yes. And if they take an interest in you, they will. These things are not just in the mountains. They are everywhere. They are everywhere that they want to be with whoever they want to be with. So if it were me, I would put up salt barriers, maybe some black salt on each one of those doors and windows, especially that one that's having the handprints. Cleanse your space really well, especially the upstairs space, where you're hearing the cat, and that room where you're hearing the glass break. Do extra cleansings in those areas. But yeah, things will absolutely follow you if they like you. Be as boring as possible. So I received a series of emails recently titled Help, and I have read those emails, and I am truly at a loss. I don't know what advice to give this person. Any advice that I do have, they've tried and it's not working. I did have a few more ideas. I'm going to personally email them myself. But basically, I'm coming here to share this story with you to see if you have any advice that you can comment below, because the more the merrier at this point. They did attach pictures. I'm going to be showing you one of them. The others, I feel like that was not meant for me to share. But I am going to show you one at the end. I'm going to give you a warning. You don't have to look at it. The energy's not great. I want to give a warning to you guys. I don't know if mentions of like mental illnesses upset you or anything like that. People being hurt. That is all in this. If you need to skip it, I totally understand, but if you are here and ready to listen, this is going to be a long one, so let's put on our thinking cap and figure out how to help this family. I have a thing happening to me. I've always been in touch with the paranormal side of things since I was young. I've had way too many encounters to count, but at around the age of 12, I started to see a large shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye, usually 3 to 4 times a week. He stayed far enough away that it never felt menacing, and I was never scared, just kind of like, oh, something's there. It followed me into adulthood and every house that I've lived in. He would stand in doorways and just kind of watch over us, me in particular, and I would also have things happen around the house, such as cabinet doors opening, radios and ceiling fans turning off and on. We had chains on the basement door that would pop open just enough for me to hear it and have to go fix it and investigate. On the morning of May 7th, 2018, I was getting dressed for work and I felt something behind me. Thinking it was my husband, I turned to look, but it was that black shadow figure, very close to me. My husband passed away of a tragic car accident, and I didn't think about it until later that maybe he was trying to warn me. I didn't see him for probably 3 more years after that day, but recently I've started to see him again, and I've had more of a demonic feeling that I cannot see, but it's hurting myself and my son in the middle of the night. I wake up with scratches and burns. I'll send pictures. My stepdaughter is 8. She's been diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenic and sociopathic tendencies. She sees these friends, but I think some of her friends may be of the demonic type. She does not want to get rid of them. She doesn't like to take her medicine because she doesn't want them to go away. She's admitted to sending those friends to hurt me in the middle of the night when she gets upset with me. My son, who is 12, has also woken up with scratches, so it's escalating. I did a blessing with some holy water yesterday, and I'm going to sage the house today because I woke up yesterday with 3 huge burn marks on my arm. She wasn't even home. She's been at my sister-in-law's for 2 days. She was confronted by my sister-in-law, who 100% believes me. She flat out told her that she was just mad because I didn't believe what she told me, and that's why she sent her friends to hurt me. I guess I'm looking for some advice on what to do about blessing her or saging her or anything. She's under psychiatric care and under the care of a doctor at the moment. Our insurance is kind of messed up, so when it gets fixed, she will be going to a long-term facility to get a little more help, and we'll be going to get some therapy ourselves to kind of figure out how to deal with all the psychiatric part of this. But I need help on dealing with the paranormal side of it. I've never dealt with anything like this before. The demonic stuff, I mean. I'm a Christian, but I believe in ghosts and demons and walkers and all that stuff. So I walk a fine line, but any help would be appreciated. And that was the first email. This was the second. So at the beginning of this next email, I'm not going to go into these details because I feel like that might be upsetting to some people. She's basically talked about how the stepdaughter has tried to hurt the 3-year-old and like ways that it's happened, so much so that they had to get rid of their pool. So just there's the basics. So we got some holy oil. We are Christians, but also have a foot in the spiritual world as well, in my beliefs that they can coexist. We anointed the house with holy oil while praying. When I waited about 3.5 weeks, me and my husband and I, after lots of research on what kind of sage and crystals to buy for cleansing and protection, got our sage and went around and cleansed the house and her. That night I was attacked again because she was mad about us trying to get rid of her friend. I got another burn. I'm at a loss. My husband even brought me a protection bracelet to wear at all times. I never take it off. All of these things still couldn't cleanse this. This makes me believe it's a lot more powerful than I thought. I'm terrified for myself and my baby and my poor husband who just doesn't know what to do. We need help and fast. I have literally seen the goat with horns in her eyes, which is scary in its own right. What do I do? Please, anything and everything is welcome. She sent one more email, and then we are going to look at that picture and talk about it. So her husband has started having dreams of very traumatic stuff that has happened in his childhood, and the daughter took credit for sending those friends to do that to him. She did mention at the end of her email that she thinks she made a mistake because she told it that it could hurt her and do whatever it wanted to her to keep the focus off of her children, and she thinks maybe that's why it escalated. Now, she sent me pictures of everything she's woken up with on her skin, the scratches, the burns, everything. But the last picture she sent was of what they caught in her daughter's eye. What she said looked like a figure with goat horns. This is terrifying, and I am actually struggling to look at it myself. It is the worst kind of energy, but there's your warning. I'm attaching it right now. If you have any advice, please comment it below. Like I said, I've reached out to them myself, but if you have anything, please go ahead and comment that. And yeah, here is that picture. I'm uploading this video right after I upload the actual story, so if you have not watched that yet, go watch the video before this one. But I was emailing back the person that sent me the story, and my email kept glitching, specifically where I was trying to tell them ways that they could, help their situation. And it kept happening so much that I screen recorded it, and I want to show you guys that right now. It glitched just within a second, so that it was enough for me to notice it and to go back and try to change the paragraph, but then it would switch back. It was I don't know, it was something was trying to mess with me. I send dozens of emails a day. This has never happened to me. I'm not saying that Gmail didn't just glitch. It very well could have, but it was just very creepy considering the email that I was trying to send and the fact that that happened. So let's take a look at it. confidence that this filter gives me is unmatched. Anyways, I'm here to share a very terrifying experience that was sent in to me. So one night our follower was relaxing on the porch of their fiance's parents' house. Now this house is outside of a national forest in West Virginia, so I'm already scared. It was starting to get dark out and their conversation had switched to supernatural chit chat. And our follower was explaining to their fiance how they could not believe that living where they did, they never experienced anything strange. The follower was pretty careful to not say the name of the entity that she was talking about that lurks around the woods in the Appalachian Mountains, but the fiance did not care and honestly took it as a bit of a challenge, started saying it over and over and loudly. Soon they both go inside, but the follower has to come back out to let the dogs out, and when they do, they are met with something underneath the very flickery light of the garage door. It kind of looked like a border collie, but it was very slim and had a hunchback. They called their fiance over and were like, look at this, and by the time that they got to the door, they actually opened it to go outside and the thing ran away. And that is why you do not say the names of things, especially in the Appalachian Mountains, because you're basically just being like, hey, can you come here for a sec? So the question is, can the things that lurk around the woods be things other than trees and animals? Outside of our follower's home was a very wide span of hills and wooded area. But on the outskirts of where this wooded area began, there was a flat surface where the previous owners had installed a swing. The follower used this swing all of the time, and this windy day was no different. Windy days are the best time to swing. It's like you have someone there pushing you without having to deal with people. It is the best. They made note that the wildlife that lives around their home in this wooded area is very noisy. They can always hear the birds, they can always hear the squirrels, something is always making a ruckus. So as they're swinging, listening to a video on their headphones, they start to get a very bad feeling in their stomach. They feel like they're being watched, dread is incoming, something is wrong. So they take off those headphones and they are met with silence. No birds, no squirrels. The wind stopped blowing. They look through the trees right in front of them and notice that there is something out of place. There's a rock laying there, but it wasn't laying there before. This rock had two blacked out eyes and a large gaping mouth that was also blacked out. So they ran. They hoofed it back to their house. Thank goodness their back door was unlocked and they went inside. As soon as they got inside and shut that door, they turned around and snapped a picture, and they actually sent that picture to me. So I'm gonna insert it. You guys let me know what you think. It's definitely unsettling. It looked more like a large, alien bug to me. I don't know. It looked weird. I want to share with you a horrifying story that I just read in my DMs because I will not suffer alone. I live in northern Canada and I'm 18. I live in town technically, but the town in general is very, very small. We're surrounded by forest. A couple years ago now, I was walking home at around 11 p.m. and I was on the phone with my old best friend. There's a lot of deer in my area, but they usually move in groups. That night I was almost right outside my house when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Really, really clearly, I saw a little boy, probably 4 or 5, in a red hat with a pom-pom on it. He was wearing a blue coat and black pants. I looked for a while because I didn't have my glasses, and I was plain and simply confused as to why there was a kid just chilling outside my house. I felt okay, the weather didn't change or anything, but after maybe 5 seconds of me looking at this child, it shifted. I have no idea how to describe it properly, but it was like the whole thing shifted in a split second. And in that split second, it was now the head of a very big deer. The deer lifted its head up from the ground, and it was massive. It looked right at me. I don't know how to explain the way it changed because it was so confusing. As soon as it changed, I immediately went inside. I didn't run, I didn't look back. Went inside and I locked the door. I felt so sick as soon as I was inside. I never saw it again, but there is a train that runs through my town, and late at night you can sometimes hear the brakes on the train and the horn. But now not only that, you can hear something imitating that screeching. That's terrifying. That is so scary. Deer will forever be the scariest animal because how do you know it's not a deer? Let's sit down, get cozy, and read a very terrifying story that I was sent and see if we can offer any advice to this person. For some background, I'm Anna, I'm 16, and I've been experiencing this for the past 5 to 6 years. I live in Louisiana. I moved from South Louisiana to a more central part in the middle of a forest. It's a huge national forest and there aren't many people in the town that I've moved into. My mom was always a whatever kind of person. She didn't outright say she was a skeptic, but she always found a way to debunk things. I learned that from her. That being said, I was a weird kid at school and I never had many friends. Well, when it was dry outside, we were allowed to play in the field behind the school. At this time, I was in 5th grade and my best friend wasn't there, so I had nobody to play with. I sat on the bench and watched other kids play. After a while, I started watching the birds fly around by the tall grass. That was our bear, basically. I watched until I saw something moving and scanned for where it came from. I guess I locked eyes with this tall white thing. I say I guess because I didn't really see a face or any facial features. I stared at it like it was some sort of fear response. When the bell rang, I ran inside. I've regretted that ever since because I started seeing it in every tree line. It never really got past the tree line and I was thankful for that. Soon I moved to a new house. I was in 6th grade and freshly 11. We lived there for 3 years. I didn't have any problems seeing this thing because we had a fence. Sadly, that only lasted so long because shortly after moving in, a hurricane hit and knocked the fence over. I didn't have any curtains yet and I was babysitting my sister and brother for the night. I was in my room doing homework and I suddenly became absolutely terrified. I looked out of my window crying and saw the figure in the tree line behind my house. I ran to my neighbor's house crying as some of the books had somehow fallen from my dresser when I saw it. I put a blanket over my window until I got curtains and did my best to keep myself calm. Eventually the feeling subsided and I began feeling safe in my own room again. Then the week of sleep paralysis hit. I hated it so much, and it was always so scary watching it inch closer. I started drawing protective runes on my walls and doors and mirrors and windows and basically all over my room, and it stopped shortly after. I still saw it all the time after we cut down the oak tree, but it stopped coming that close to me. I moved to a small town about 3 hours away from where I used to live, and this is my current situation. I live in a national forest, so you can imagine how beneficial that is to my situation. I'm terrified because my sister saw it as well. My sister is 12, she believes in Christianity, but knowing I'm a pagan, she came to me to tell me she saw the figure. She said it was a man that looked too tall and long standing in an unfenced backyard. We're surrounded by trees and our neighbors are far off and older couples. I'm genuinely scared for her because she's an easy target. She's young and naive and is very emotional. I need help soon because I don't know what to do. I know it's not a friend, but she doesn't believe in things like I do, and she doesn't understand what that thing is. It's not a friendly energy. Please help, I'm begging you. So you did mention that drawing the protective runes helped. I would definitely keep that up along with cleansing your space, maybe cleansing the entirety of the inside of the house, and maybe making little barriers on your windows especially. You can use black salt, you can make it yourself or buy it some places. If you don't want to do that, just use regular salt. You can also use selenite sticks. But yeah, I would definitely cleanse your space and put up some barriers. Keep drawing, runes, protection sigils, whatever you want to do, and maybe check in with your sister to see if she's comfortable with that as well. I know you said she was a Christian, so maybe she'd be more comfortable with like a cross necklace she wears all the time, just something like that, whatever everyone's most comfortable with. Yeah, that's definitely my best piece of advice. I'm sorry this thing's messing with you guys, but you're right, it's definitely not a friend, so we need to get that taken care of. Now, I've talked about the glowing red eyes on my channel before, but have you guys ever heard of the glowing purple eyes? One of you guys sent me in a picture and it looks like you may have captured some glowing purple eyes. So let's get into the backstory of the picture and what's been happening after. So a few years ago, they took their brother's dog out for a car ride and somehow just got the urge to take a picture. So they get out their phone, snap a picture of the dog, and then look at the picture, and dog's beautiful, beautiful husky, but to the back where there is nothing but cornfields and darkness. No houses, no nothing. There are 2 glowing purple eyes. Ever since they've taken this picture years ago, they feel something outside of their room. They always know it's lingering close by and they keep waking up at around like 3:30 to 3:45 a.m. Each time they wake up and feel it, they feel the need to look outside of their window, but they've never done it. They grew up in a very superstitious family, don't whistle, don't kill spiders, all of that stuff, so they pretty much knew the rules from the get-go. But I wanted to show you guys this picture because it is very, very creepy. If paranormal things caught on camera freak you out, I would definitely not keep watching this video. I'll wait a second and give you time to scroll. Alright, I gave you time. It's your fault now if you stayed. It's not my fault if you get scared. So this video was captured by a follower that sent it in to me at none other than Waverly Hills Sanatorium, because where else would this happen? But they sent a little backstory to me along with the video, so I'm going to read that backstory to you as well, and then I will just show you the video. A few months ago, me and my fiance went on a 3-hour tour. We saw and heard plenty of things while on the tour, and we actually had people in our group get scratched. My fiance also felt something grab his hand, but the scariest thing that we found was this video we captured while walking out. At the end of the tour, they lead us to the gift shop, and it was already really late and we were starving, so we were the first and only ones walking out. The window where the figure kept going in and out of was part of the original hospital. It wasn't a gift shop or lobby or anything like that. Nothing we seen down that hallway where it would have been would make sense, and it was pitch black and empty. The light you see at first is my fiance, but before we started recording, there was an orangey flash of light several times at that window. This could totally be a person, but the way it was abnormally little and how it would kind of hover the window in a weird way is what freaked me out. I need opinions on this because it really freaked us out. Make sure your brightness is up when watching it. It makes it easier to see. So I'm gonna adjust the video and turn up the brightness for you, but again, fair warning, it's eerie. Waverly Hills is a weird place, so do with that information what you will, and here's the video.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Stop doing it now. Oh, something just moved by.
Go ask him what's in that room then. I saw it too. You're freaking me out. Wait, did you see that?
While talking to their girlfriend one night, they decide to walk out on their front porch and stand underneath their porch light just so they can look at the stars. And they're probably like, I mean, if I'm in the light, nothing can happen to me. Like, kind of like the movie Lights Out. It's like, if I am lit up, I am safe. Everything around the darkness can do whatever it wants in the darkness, but me in the light, I'm safe. So they're on the phone, they're FaceTiming their girlfriend, and they start to notice something feels a little bit off. So they ask her to mute her line, and they're just kind of standing there silently listening. And what they hear is nothing, in the worst way possible. There's no wildlife, no crickets, no wind, no nothing. Everything is at a standstill. And in turn, the hair on their neck starts standing up. So they stand there and listen a bit longer, and then they hear the most visceral, from the gut scream coming from the woods. Now, they live in Lower Lancaster County in Pennsylvania, and they said they aren't particularly near any woods, but there are a lot of trees that separate the houses, and that is where the scream was coming from. But it's not just a woman screaming, which could be a bobcat or anything like that. This woman is screaming, "Help me. Please, God, help me. Help me." Immediately calls the police, which is what you should do when you hear this stuff. You should not go investigate it by yourself. Let them go. They got stuff to defend themselves, and there's more than one of them. Calls them, the police are on their way, and she just kind of stands there and listens as this thing starts screaming again. This time the words change. It's still "help me, please God help me," but this time it adds in, "It's me. Why aren't you helping me? Oh God, it's me." And this happened right as they were like, okay, maybe I need to go check because this person's in danger and I don't know if the cops are going to get here quick enough. But they hear that word, it, not them, not he, not she, not they, it is me. They freeze in their tracks. The cops come not too long after. They're still hearing these screams. The cops don't hear anything. While it is happening, the cops do not hear what is happening. They scope the whole area. There is nothing. There is nothing. There is no one. And they don't hear it.